Hey guys, this is my very first YouTube video. So we're just going to start with something simple, something to kind of help practice all of the steps of content creation. And the way I'm going to do that is by designing and then building a decorative light switch that looks like a little fishing shack with a nightlight circuit inside. And it's going to light up when we turn our lights off. It's going to turn off when we turn our lights on, and just gonna cover all of the steps so that I can practice my content creation.
All right, so hopping into Blender, you can see we start out with our default cube. We're actually gonna keep this, scale it up a little bit, and then subdivide it so that we can get our plane removed for the roof. And you'll see me use a lot of Fusion 360 on this channel, but I think for this low poly art style, Blender really lends itself. There's something nice about being able to drag around each individual vertex, rather than having to do addition and subtraction of shapes. And I know that Fusion does have a built-in mesh software, but I don't have that much experience, and Blender's just an easy thing to learn. I haven't used Blender since about 2016, so you'll see a lot of trial and error as we go on here, but we're just gonna hash out our basic house form and just kind of get everything squared away. So we've added our roof line, and now we have a couple of struts. I'm modeling this after kind of a Louisiana style fishing shack. So it's gonna have that big porch as kind of almost a primary entryway, but certainly the focus of this build. We'll add our little structure here, but this big offshoot is kind of where we're gonna add some components later. The big inspiration for this project was actually just to have a big fishing pole hanging off. That was kind of what started this whole thing. The house was almost secondary. So here we've got our railing for the porch. We're just gonna pull it back and then just kind of mess everything up a little bit. You know, I don't want it to look too clean. If I was gonna do that, I would just go back to Fusion. So here we're gonna add just a little bit of texture. Some planks on the side. We just create, a couple more loop divides, and then pull some of those edges out to just kind of create an easy wood pattern. And then we'll further subdivide that and just play around with a few of the vertices just to give us a little bit more texture. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Just kind of give ourselves just a little bit of randomness. We don't care if these are all close to even. We actually want them to be a little bit messy. Just gives our house a little bit more character. And I know we're going for low poly, so we won't mess this up too much. We'll just do some basic lines. And we're starting to look like a house here, so let's just step back. We'll take a second and talk a little bit about the circuit that's going to be running that LED inside our house. So this page, which I'll link in the description, is by a man named Mark in the UK, and it covers the circuit that we're going to be using to pull our small current off of the 120 volt mains that we use here. But essentially there's two parts. There's an RC circuit that's going to limit the current through our LED, and then a full wave rectifier, which is going to double the frequency. And by doubling the frequency, we ensure that our LED is on more of the time and we get a little bit more brightness out of it. So by using a 470 nanofarad capacitor and a 500 ohm resistor, we place the current through our LED at about 21 amps, which is perfect. So let's see how we're going to hook this thing up into the wall. Now this top example is the ideal way of hooking everything up to power. You can see that we've removed the actual light switch that was currently in the wall, and we've replaced everything with this single pole double throw switch, which allows us to select between either running current exclusively through our LED circuit or exclusively through the overhead light that's going to be used. So the light inside the house will only turn on when the overhead light is off, and the overhead light will only turn on when the LED is off. And this is great if you have access to all of the electricals inside the junction box and the light switch. But since mine are already pretty permanent inside my apartment and I don't want the landlord to get too mad at me, we're going to use this second circuit where we wire directly over the top of the existing light switch. So you can see that switch on the left is just a dummy. That's our existing light switch, and is that there's always going to be just a little bit of leakage current through our overhead light. Now, if, like me, your overhead light is an incandescent, this small amount of current isn't going to cause anything to turn on. But it's important to note that if you have a fluorescent or an LED, you're going to need to wire it the first way. Alright, so hopping back into Blender, we'll get started on some of the details of the house, like the windows and the doors. These are all kind of from the default cube, and we just play around with the edges, kind of muck it up a little bit, just like on the sides of the house. We don't want anything to be perfect. It's low poly, so we won't mess with it too much, but we just want to make sure it's not too rigid looking. And speaking of the Blender sections, a large percentage of the content for this video is going to be Blender, so I've gone ahead and broken it up into 3 sections where we just kind of deal with the circuit in between. Because for me it was a lot of Blender just to watch back to back to back. So here you see we're taking more loop cuts, just kind of bowing out that wood, making it look like, you know, the roof over the porch is kind of taking its toll on the structure underneath, and the weight's just kind of collapsing it over the years. Alright, now we're gonna get started on the door. So this door would be the land side. This is kind of the entrance from the back. Again, the primary entrance for this house is kind of intended to be on the porch. It's kind of like a swamp house, so you'd probably drive your boat right up to the porch there and hop in through that door. But this is kind of our secondary door. And we'll give it a little overhang as well later on in the video. I think I do that part off camera. So here we're just lowering that door down because on this side we don't have that little framing piece of wood that the sides of the main house do. And then we're actually going to start working on the deck itself. And the deck's where we're going to add a lot of detail. You'll see I take this plank and I kind of play around with it a little bit before really settling into it. But we're just going to kind of repeat a pattern of 3 planks across this whole thing, and we'll mess them up a little bit too, just like the rest of the house, just to get a little bit of a worn look. So there we go, we duplicate it over. We're going to go ahead and flip that last plank on the left there, just to fill in a little bit more space, and then we'll use our randomize tool to mess everything up just a little bit more. So as we mess everything up, we're going to scale it down just a little bit on the Z-axis just to make sure it all fits into that framing. And with that completed, we'll hop back out and start building up our circuit. So there is our circuit complete. You can see we just bent that diode up and over our resistors to avoid touching. And we'll go ahead and glue this down to a piece of resin that I've printed out. And this is the exact same size as the bottom of our shack, hollowed out. But it's got 2 little lips which will catch that wood framing piece on either side so that it actually holds in there quite nicely. As you can see, we've also wired the capacitor and the resistor into this on-off pull chain, which is going to be the true switch for our circuit, and we'll wire it over the top of our dummy switch in the wall. Alright, so one last time into Blender, we're just gonna hook everything up together and add a couple of little decorational components. So you can see we've imported this switch plate that I've created from Fusion 360 just so that all of our dimensions line up perfectly. And we're just gonna scale it down and attach it to the back of the shack. And the actual attachment I've done off camera, but what we'll use is a Boolean modifier in Blender to just subtract out the holes where we don't need them and subtract off the back of the roof that pokes through this thing. And With Blender, it doesn't really matter that the models are all separate and they all overlap each other. When we convert everything into an STL, the printer won't care what belongs to one or the other. They all touch each other, and the printer will just make sure everything's printed out as one whole unit. So here, we're going to create a small array of little pegs. These are just little railing banisters. They're going to hold everything up, and I don't want to play with them too much, but we'll just randomize the angle that they sit just a little bit, so it looks a little bit funky and worn down. So the next thing we're going to add in is going to be a little chimney for our shack. This just brings a little bit more life into the build. For me, I think it kind of implies that that light is coming from somewhere and that someone's actually home and living in our little house here. So pretty simple. I like that gnarled look, so kind of bend everything around, make it look like it's almost like from a Tim Burton movie. And then we'll go ahead and add some extras as well. So this right here, this is the beginning of the fishing pole. Again, this was kind of the original idea behind this whole build. I just wanted to make a little fishing shack, and to be honest, because we don't have stilts, we don't have water, this is the only thing that actually implies that this is on the water other than the architectural style that we've used. But you could again drop this pretty much anywhere and it would just look like a rundown shack. So it's our little fishing pole. We'll just scale it down, pop it in front. You see I've also added a little chair in there off camera, again just to make it look like someone actually lives here and they use this on a pretty regular basis. And so now that our fishing pole's done, we'll add one more little thing. Again, if you're fishing, you're gonna be sitting there for a long time. You probably wanna have something to do with you, or something to eat maybe. So we'll just make a little side table, maybe somewhere where he could have a bowl of chips or a sandwich or something. And we'll just place it down right next to our little chair, make it look like someone uses this place. And with that done, I think the build is complete. So we've 3D printed it out, and here's a preview of it up on the wall. It's unsanded and unpainted at this point, but we'll go over that next. So these are the paints that I use. This is just basic model enamel, and you can see I've got some color swatches that I tried out on a test print here. I ended up going with that green with some brown painted over. It kind of looks like worn down wood with a little bit of maybe moss poking through or just decay. And then I brush over this green with a gray and tan blend with lots of thinner, which just creates that nice dusty texture. And then finally dry brush over the top of that with some darker brown that's made from black and our rust colored orange there. And then to finish it all off, I just do a final pass with pure paint thinner. Just leave it on there and let it kind of dissolve that rich orangey color into the wood. All right, and here's our mostly complete house. So you see we've painted up all the accessories, fishing pole, chairs, doors, and we kind of weathered them too with our tan and gray and a little bit darker gray just to make it look like some of the paint is flecking off. And the only thing left to do at this point is to paint the roof. And so for the roof, I'm gonna do a mix of black spray paint and silver spray paint and just see if I can get like a weathered metal texture. And here it is. So this is our fully painted house. So the next thing to do is the windows, and for the windows we're just going to take this semi-fine grit sandpaper and we're actually just going to sand down. This is the package from the pull switch, and we'll just rough it up a little bit, make it diffuse a little bit more, and then super glue these on the inside over all of our windows and doors, and that'll make sure that we can't actually see the LED inside the house. You can see also at this point I have actually sprayed the backing piece, that tan color. That's just to match up with the existing light plate, but if I had a different color wall, that could really be anything. So I'll just push the edges of this little window down with the back side of the super glue container, making sure that everything is pressed down firmly. Alright, so the last step of this is the assembly itself. You'll see we push the wires from our pull switch right through that back hole and slide everything up inside the house. That lip on our resin bottom catches right on that left side, even though I don't manage to do it here. And then we'll put everything up against the wall and loosen those 2 screws and tighten down our 2 wires. And it doesn't matter which side is top or bottom, it'll work either way. And here it is. So this is our complete fishing cabin on the wall. And as you can see, the light inside looks beautiful. During the day, it can be a little bit difficult to see through the left side, but at night it looks absolutely stunning. So we'll show that. And there it is.
All right, guys, so there it is. Thank you so much for watching. I will be doing another similar project in the very, very near future, where we design, print, and decorate a Wi-Fi router. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, please subscribe. Everyone's new. And if you have any tips, comments, tricks, anything you want to share that would help improve the channel, any experiences with YouTube, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.